Okay, we're going to do a new video, day 9. Share my screen with you. The GeoGebra file here, the last thing we did was we created this input box where you type in a frequency, and the whole purpose is for each frequency you're going to get a different value out, which will represent, well, we're going to create a vector, and that vector is going to rotate around, well, initially around the origin, but then we're going to move them so they are connected to each other tip to tail. So you'll see what we're going to do first is create a point using the point tool at the origin. So if you hover over the origin, it should pop up x-axis, y-axis, and then just click, okay? And right click, I'm going to not show the label. Just try to keep the screen somewhat clear here. Next, we have a list 5. And what I am going to do is enter the very first point in list 5, L 5, 1. Enter. 0.56. Now, one way to check this is to go up to your frequency slider. You can do this from the algebra window. Bring it to 0 and look at C. 0.56, 0.7. That's the first one. Now, it happens to be the first point in L5, right? Because that's what we did was we changed the C value as the frequency slider moved, and that's our first value. Okay, so the idea is you're going to create vectors. Okay, let's make our first vector. So we'll go to vector from this pull down, right, like that, and go from the origin to that point, and it labeled it as V. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is come up to, in my case, it's called point. Goodbye. Point D and point E. I'm going to go to point D first. Now, yours might be called some other letter, depending on, it might have, automatically labeled it for you. So just keep in mind, it's the one that says X, the mean of the X of the point, L positive. Let's go down. Let's take a look at it. It says X, mean X L positive, and comma, mean Y L positive. So come over here to scripting, on update, right? You got to make sure that tab is selected. We're going to put in, let me think, copy free object. You're going to type the letter of the point, in this case, in my case, D. We're going to multiply, so that's shift 8 times. Now, it will be helpful to pull up the keyboard here. And f of x, okay, so this one here, we have this e to a power, exponential constant. Click that. It's very small here, but that's e to the power. And we want to use parentheses here. It doesn't actually show it up here in the subscript. And so all of this in the parentheses will be an exponent, okay? What we're going to first put in there is I, and then shift 8 times. T, because we have a slider T here, right? So, and you'll see what this does when we're done here. So T times, I'm going to type in copy free object again of C E times T and copy free, POSFREQ. Okay, so how many parentheses do we close it with? 1 for that one for that one, and just 2, I think. And that should do it, okay? Before we leave this command line, I'm going to copy, Control C or Command C if you're doing using a Mac. So I copied that because we're basically going to type that whole thing again, but it's easier just to copy and paste it. And we're going to make a slight change after pasting it. So now, escape here. I accidentally created a vector here. I want to be here. On the selection tool, come down to the other point, which says mean XL negative. Click that. We go to, see point E. We're going to go to scripting. And into scripting, we're going to type, well, we're going to paste Control V. The only difference is we aren't using D here. We're using E, or I'm using E, and you're using whatever this says here, okay? And instead of positive frequency, we have a couple of options here. In the video that I posted earlier without the audio, I wrote N minus, or no, I did negative frequency minus N, I think. But it turns out that's the same as just typing negative POSFREQ. Negative positive frequency, I think. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I'm pretty sure that works. Okay, what does all that do? Those two commands, they're going to create new points. They're just copies of points that you already have in a list up here. It's just reordering them in a very convenient way. You know, we have negative frequencies. I mentioned those were in the latter part of that spectrum bar chart that you made earlier. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in, well, okay, I really want to type in 1. Let me type 0. And you might have to make some changes now and again. But right here, okay, I already have this one. That was the original vector that I put in. So let me just delete this for a minute. But it just created this point. This kind of shows you what it does, the command. So I'm going to delete. All right, let's try this again. 1, enter. And all right, so what I'm noticing is it only created one of the points, and that's not what we want. We want 2. I wanted a Z1. I was expecting a Z1 and a Z2. So somewhere along the line, I messed up my command. So I'll go back. Let's check this again. Settings. I put it in scripting. Where did it go? Oh, did I delete? Maybe I did Control X instead of Control C. Control V, and that was D. That's what I had initially. Okay. All right, so bear with me. I'm gonna just start over here. I'm gonna delete this. Remember we had 0. There. Yeah, see it created 2 of them. I'm just testing it out here. So it created 2, but I don't want the ones with 0 because that was the point of this initial one, right? We wrote L5 parentheses 1 earlier. So let me delete. Okay, and one more time. We'll just go like this. 1, enter. Okay, so what we're expecting are 2 points, Z1 and Z2. Good. So I'm going to zoom in here on those values. Let's come over here. So what you're going to do is make vectors again, just like we did initially here. You're going to go to from the origin to, well, go to Z1 first, and you click. So from the origin to the point, it named it W for me. Do it again. From here to Z2. It's a very small vector. That's why I zoomed in. You might zoom in more. Okay. So let's create some space. Now I have 3 vectors shown on the screen, right? This one called C, this one called W, and this one called V. And GeoGebra just names things whatever it wants. We're going to end up hiding those labels anyway. But what we're going to do next is go over here to vector from point. The whole idea is we want to connect these in a sense like a chain of vectors. And keep in mind, these are all going to spin. I can show you now what I mean. Let's go back. They're all going to spin. Do you see how they're actually spinning in opposite directions? But we don't want them all spinning at the origin. So what we have to do is move these two vectors to connect to the first one we made. So this is how you do it. You go to this tool, vector from point. We click the end of the point of the first, the end point of the first vector we made. Okay, not the Z1, Z2 one, this one here. And then you click the vector. In this case, I'll do this one right here, which was for Z1, enter. See what it did? It just made a copy. It translated the vector over. You might know this from physics, that vectors can be moved and they maintain their properties of translation. So again, when I slide T, see they both slide, right? They slide together. But we don't really want to see this one anymore. Okay, so what we can do is pull up the menu and show object on the point. I can just sort of basically hide these. We're going to do the same thing with this one, this little vector. For me, it's a small vector compared to the other one. I'm going to put it at the end here. So it'll point up a little bit. And we use the same command. You go here, click the end. Then you click the vector. Sometimes they're so small it's hard to actually grab it. So you can point to the label. Sometimes that's easier. So C, okay, see, I put it over there. And again, I can show you that they're all moving together. See, they're all right. That's what we want. And again, we can hide this. I find it's easy to sometimes hide from the algebra view, meaning just click the circles. So this is Z2, right? So let's scroll up. You see Z2 has got a solid circle, hide it, basically unclick it. And what's this vector? C, there it is, C, so I hide it. And then just a formatting thing that will be helpful going forward is I'm going to hide the labels. So let me show you a nice thing that you can do. It'll be fast. Settings, color. I'm going to color it red. Okay, so the vectors I'll keep as red, and then the points we'll keep as black. And over here on this vector, I'm going to just uncheck show label, so hiding the label. So it's just a little cleaner to look at. Now, instead of doing that all over again for every vector, you go over here, copy visual style. So just click that red vector. What's going to do is change this vector, if I click this one now, to the same style as this one. So it'll go red, and it'll hide the label. So I'll click this one, and it goes red, and it hides the label. And same thing with these points. Now, let me go back. Okay, so if I want it to be no label, I can click. Remember, I hid the label on this point. So I'm going to click this point. No, let's go back to copy visual style. Okay. This thing's always in the way. Let's move. Okay. Back here, click this, click this, click this. I'm just hiding the labels. Just a little cleaner to look at. Okay, so that's the idea. And basically, in the next video, I'm going to show you that we're just going to keep repeating this process of creating two. We're not going to create three vectors next time. We'll create two vectors for the next frequency, which would be frequency 2. Here, we'll just punch it in now, and then I'll pick it up at the next video. 2, enter. And over here, and one of them is off the screen, I think. Oh, no, they were both right here, Z3, Z4. So what are we going to do? We're going to create two more vectors off the origin, and we're going to attach it to the end of this. So in the end, we're going to animate this T, and we should have a whole bunch of vectors all connected, starting at the origin, and all chained together. But what's going to happen is they're going to spin in different ways. And it's all determined by steps we've done in previous days. Okay, so I'm going to stop it here, and we'll pick it up on the next